welcome to another video here on the Critical Focus channel. First off, a big shout out to all my members who support my work and keeps the paint flowing and the electricity running. Members do get access to the member Discord, will influence the content, the matchups, whatnot. There is a join button below if you feel so inclined. But regardless, I am happy for your support in the form of actually just watching the video, of a like and a comment, and if you haven't already, please do feel free to subscribe as well. And if you are looking to buy Warhammer merch, there is an affiliate link in the video description as well. Let's get on with the video. Alright, time for the third deck review from the core box, and this time it's the Flex deck, Pillage and Plunder, and so I've found this to be a fairly fun deck to play, especially as start box decks goes. So yeah, let's just knock this out as quickly as possible. Let's go through the searches first, the end phases, the ploys, and then lastly the upgrades, and then maybe some final thoughts as well. So, searches. Aggressive Claimant is certainly very solid for attacking someone in neutral territory or shoving someone off a treasure token with an attack. Both situations seems very likely to appear, so this should be a fairly easy score. Next one is Claim the Prize, silly easy for simply delving in enemy territory, or even friendly if you are the underdog. So yeah, that's another no-brainer, no effort card right there, that's just bound to be included. Delving for Wealth is the third delve in a round, even easier now that you may delve while staggered. Takes a bit more time to get there, but it's also gonna be a very easy auto score basically. Share the Load is score this after move if you end up on a feature token, while also another friendly fighter is on a feature token at the same time. Dead easy for any warband bigger than 3 fighters, and even doable for those basically, and with reactional moves scoreable straight away. Hostile Takeover is scored after your second or a later attack in a round. That was not done as part of a charge. Obviously very easy for ranged warbands especially, might be a bit of a reach for elite aggro or one ranged teams like Morgox without aid of card tech, but as I said, very solid for quite a few warbands. Careful Survey is last, and this one would be rough as a late draw even for large warbands, as it needs a friendly fighter in each of the 3 territories, but for Grimcracks, Grimwatch, Sarbags, etc. it's gonna be quite a solid objective even in the latter rounds. These objectives sit somewhere between the Hold and Strike decks in terms of scoreability, but compared to what we are used to in the previous edition, these are rather strong, no doubt about that. So far they seem more tailored towards warbands of at least 4 fighters, I would say. End phases then. Broken Prospects is problematic in latter rounds, as you have to delve 3 treasure tokens, which of there may not be many come round 2 or 3, but on the other hand, the optional condition there can be scored instead with some luck. It's certainly no auto score, but definitely reasonable and very solid for 2 glory, and a cool design with a hybrid card that covers the bases differently given what round you are in. More of this kind of design please. Against All Odds is rather straightforward. Delve an odd numbered treasure token in the previous round. Given we can delve with staggered fighters, this requires 2 power steps with a single fighter even if we start the round on a cover hex token. So yeah, very solid 1 glory there, but not very interesting maybe. Lost in the Depths is rather simple as well, with no friendly fighters adjacent, and any, as per the rulebook, means at least 1 should be alive. 1 glory, but yeah, very reliable. Desolate Homeland is another very reliable one. 1 or fewer treasure tokens in friendly territory. If there is more than 1, just delve 1, which you will do with this deck anyway, so yeah, 1 out score glory there. Next up is Torn Landscape for 2 or fewer treasure tokens on the battlefield. Flip 3 and you're done. Obviously tougher versus a hold opponent, but certainly reasonable for 2 glory. Strip the Realm is last. A bit of a gamble, but I think the second option there with no enemy fights holding is, given the opposition, pretty interesting. 3 glory cards are most often, and should be, a bit of a gamble and more far-fetched, but luckily we have a couple of other more than 1 glory end phases here, which makes the gamble worth it in my opinion. The first option is a bit far-fetched obviously, so you'll mostly take this for the second option there, especially versus aggro teams. That's a very good condition. I think overall these objectives looks a lot more creative and interesting than the strike and hold ones. I get that those decks are meant to be your first experience of Embergard, but I felt they at least could have been given somewhat more finesse. Well, let's check out the ploys then. First up, Sidestep, our old staple, not much finesse there, but just always worth the inclusion. Prideful Duelist is a 1-point heal after an attack in enemy territory, no success needed, and if you plan to attack anyway, it's a nice side effect. This deck generally seems though tailored towards mid-sized or larger warbands, so not sure I feel it's absolutely critical if you are going to deck build to keep this one in. Commanding Stride is a 3-hex push for the leader, or up to a 3-hex push. To end up in a starting hex, yeah, it's a decent card for sure, but I kind of wish there were less card doubles in these decks. Crumbling Mine is pick a treasure token that is not held to flip it. Do note that this does not count towards delving, as delving requires a fighter to do it, but it does help with having a certain number of treasure tokens left on the battlefield for some of the end phases. So yeah, and if you want a feature token to become a treasure token before you delve it to score some end phases, it could also be useful. Explosive Charges is +1 move while charging as a domain, +1 move for the round is pretty nice, albeit only on charges. Not absolutely necessary to keep this around in Nemesis, I would argue. Wary Delver is a guard token for a charged fighter, decent, but I'll probably skip it most of the time when I deck build down the line, unless we get scoring conditions that require such a thing. Brush Scout is a reroll for an attack or all dice reroll if you are the underdog. Sure, but why isn't this one in the aggro deck? Sunblast is a stagger token for an adjacent enemy fighter. I mean, it makes thematic sense for the pillaging and plundering and blowing stuff up. So given the cards we've seen so far, there's a fair few here to mix and max in a more aggressive strike flex pairing, I guess. Tunneling Terror is remove an untokened fighter from the battlefield and then drop them down in a stagger hex with a move token or without a token if you are the underdog. Pretty cool card. Thematically, pushing or repositioning fighters are always useful inclusions. Trapped Cache is a pretty low stipulation ping card. Take an enemy down to kill a territory leading into your activation. Okay, so some weird inclusions here that seem more akin to aggro and would make very good Nemesis combos, but for the purpose of scoring these specific cards, I would have wished for more tech for delving specifically. So upgrades: Great Speed, Minor Effect, Zero Glory. I think the 0 is a bit of a lure to make this seem better than it is. It's an upgrade you really never took previously, and I don't think you need to now either. Glory isn't an issue, and so taking it on that merit in Nemesis is not worthwhile in my opinion. Swift Step, this though might well be, as this allows us to charge a fighter standing on the feature token, you push them off, and then even if we don't trigger overrun, we can then push onto that token to get on with the delving shenanigans. Burrowing Strike is an attack action upgrade with 2 range, 2 swords, 2 damage. Not a terrible, albeit a bit inaccurate profile, but you get +1 dice if you are staggered and or are attacking from a feature token. Only really worthwhile for large warbands. Smaller ones are likely to have better attacks anyway. Thematically interesting with proccing of being staggered though, quite like that effort. And having a range 2 attack might help you to score the make attacks without charging card, I guess. Tough Enough makes you immune to both cleave and ensnare while you are in enemy territory. Quite good now that crits are nerfed, honestly. Value this quite a bit actually, but it only works in enemy territory. But those will be your most exposed fighters. Candy Snapper is a weirdly interesting thematic one. React to playing a Ploy, but to blow up the upgrade and bamf away with a fighter. Kind of love utility upgrades like this rather than just a +1 that or -1 that. Also costs nothing. Impossibly Quick is amazing. It's +1 save, but remove the upgrade after an enemy failed to attack you. So basically, if the upgrade delivers on what it promises, it goes away. If it doesn't, it stays. I quite like that design. Line Breaker gives you Brutal. This is a weapon effect, so pay attention to not affect stacking. But Brutal removes support for fighters defending against your attacks, which is a quite nice card. I'm not sure it's super necessary in this deck though. But for a mixed aggro flex build, I guess it could be worthwhile. Excavating Blast is another weapon upgrade. 3 range, 2 hammers, 1 damage, and stagger while you are in enemy territory. Pretty neat upgrade for a range 1 only small aggro team in a mixed build. So sorry to talk so much about the aggro flex combo here, but it's just so obvious that it's a very valid option. Put this in your Morgok or Iron Souls flex aggro builds to have some ranged utility. Glory Seeker is back. Glory Seeker is now Grievous though, so simply +1 damage and only works on melee weapon versus health 4 or more targets. Still very solid. Put this on a fighter and great strength on another one to double down on the damage increments. Quite like that it's melee only, as a 2-3 ranged attack is quite problematic in my opinion. Frenzy of Greed is last, and it gives you immunity to cleave and snare and stagger tokens while you are on a treasure token and or in a stagger eggs. I do think we need some clarification how this affects delving honestly, but apart from that it's a very solid effect to be immune to cleave and snare as pointed out earlier, but if it actually blocks stagger it's not a great inclusion in this deck as we will want to delve a lot. That is all of it, and summing it up, so lots of possibilities here to mix with the strike deck, and even on its own merits compared to the previous decks, I think it's quite a fun and interesting deck as starting box decks goes, and I suspect this will be an early fan favorite to play. What do you make of it? Make sure to comment down below and stay tuned for the last one, Countdown Cataclysm, featured next. Have a great rest of your day, take care.